In a small, war-torn village on the edge of a forgotten border, where the air smells of ash and the ground trembles with the memory of conflict, a young woman named Amira kneels in the ruins of what was once her home. The walls are gone, reduced to rubble by a missile that cared little for the lives it shattered. Her hands sift through the debris, searching for something, anything that might anchor her to the life she once knew. A photograph, a trinket, a fragment of her mother's scarf. The sky above is gray, heavy with the promise of rain, but Amira's eyes are dry. She has cried all she can. Now there is only the weight of a choice. Across the village, a man named Tariq sits in the shadow of a crumbling mosque, his rifle resting against his knee. He is not a soldier by trade, but a farmer driven to take up arms when the war came too close, when the screams of his neighbors became louder than his fear. His hands tremble as he thinks of the checkpoint he must cross tonight, where enemies, men who speak his language, men who might have been his brothers in another life, wait with their own guns and their own fears. Tariq does not want to kill. He does not want to die. But the war has made choices like his feel inevitable, as if mercy were a luxury no one could afford. In this moment, Amira and Tariq are strangers bound only by the shared scars of their village. They do not know that their paths will cross before the sun rises in a way that will test the very core of who they are. They do not know that their choices, small, human, fragile, will ripple outward, touching lives they cannot see. This is the mystery of our world, that even in the chaos of war, in the noise of hatred and the silence of despair, a single act of mercy can shift the course of history. Let us pause here in the dust of this village to listen to the words of Pope Francis spoken in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti. Every war leaves our world worse than it was before. War is a failure of politics and of humanity, a shameful capitulation, a stinging defeat before the forces of evil. These words are not merely a lament. They are a call to awaken. War, he reminds us, is not just the clash of armies or the destruction of cities. It is the erosion of our shared humanity, the moment when we forget that the enemy is a person with a name, a story, a heart that beats as ours does. Pope Francis draws from the teachings of Christ, who in the Gospel of Matthew says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." These words, spoken on a hillside 2,000 years ago, are not a passive wish for peace, but a radical challenge. To be a peacemaker is to stand in the gap between hatred and love, to choose mercy, when vengeance feels more natural, to see the face of God in the one we are tempted to destroy. Christ does not promise that peacemaking is easy or safe. He promises that it is holy. In Amira's village, where the air is thick with loss, these teachings might seem distant, like stars obscured by smoke. How does one make peace when survival demands vigilance? How does one show mercy when trust has been broken? Yet this is precisely where the teachings of Pope Francis and Christ take root, not in abstract ideals, but in the gritty, painful reality of human struggle. They ask us to look at Amira, at Tariq, and to see not just their choices, but the possibility of grace within them. Amira's fingers close around a small, cracked locket in the rubble. It belonged to her mother, a woman who sang lullabies even as bombs fell, who taught Amira that love is stronger than fear. The locket is empty now, its photograph lost, but its weight in her palm feels like a promise. She slips it into her pocket and stands her eyes scanning the horizon. The village is quiet tonight. But quiet in war is not peace. It is the held breath before the next storm. She knows she must leave this place, find safety across the border, but the journey is treacherous. Bandits roam the roads, and soldiers, friend or foe. It hardly matters, patrol the checkpoints. She has heard stories of women who never made it, of bodies left in ditches of kindness betrayed. As she gathers her few belongings, a shawl, a bottle of water, a crust of bread, she thinks of her mother's faith. Her mother was a Christian, a minority in this region, but her prayers were not for herself. She prayed for the soldiers who destroyed their home, for the neighbors who turned away in fear for the world that seemed to have forgotten them. "Forgive them, Father," she would whisper, echoing Christ's words on the cross. Amira did not understand then. She does not fully understand now. But as she steps out into the darkening evening, the locket heavy in her pocket, she feels her mother's prayers like a shield. Tariq, meanwhile, is preparing for his own journey. The checkpoint he must cross is a narrow bridge over a dry riverbed, a place where allegiances are tested and blood is often spilled. His group, 5 men, all weary, all carrying the weight of too many losses, has been tasked with delivering supplies to a nearby camp. Food medicine blankets things that should unite people, not divide them. But in war, even acts of survival become acts of defiance. Tariq knows the men at the checkpoint will see him not as a farmer, not as a father, but as a threat. He grips his rifle tighter, his heart pounding with the question he cannot escape. If they shoot first, will I shoot back? Let us turn again to Pope Francis, who in his 2015 address to the United Nations said, "The most basic understanding of human dignity compels us to recognize the sacredness of every human life from conception to natural death without exception." This is not a platitude, it is a lifeline. In the context of Amira and Tariq's world, it is a reminder that the enemy at the checkpoint, the stranger on the road, the one who carries a gun or a grudge, is sacred. Not because they are good or trustworthy, but because they are human, created in the image of God. Christ's parable of the Good Samaritan, found in the Gospel of Luke, brings this truth into sharp focus. A man lies beaten on the road, ignored by those who should help him. It is the outsider, the despised Samaritan, who stops, who binds his wounds, who shows mercy. The story is not about the absence of danger. Roads were perilous then, as they are for Amira now. It is about the courage to see the other as a neighbor, even when fear screams otherwise. Jesus ends the parable with a command, "Go and do likewise." What does this mean for Amira, stepping into the night with nothing but a locket and a prayer? What does it mean for Tariq, whose finger hovers near the trigger, knowing one wrong move could end his life? It means that mercy is not a feeling, but a choice to act, to see, to risk. It is the choice to carry a locket, not as a talisman of loss, but as a reminder of love. It is the choice to hold a rifle, but pray for a way to avoid using it. Amira's journey takes her through the outskirts of the village where the skeletons of houses loom like ghosts. She moves quietly, her shawl pulled tight against the chill. The road to the border is a long one, and she knows she must reach the bridge before dawn. Her heart races at every sound, a rustle in the bushes, the distant bark of a dog. She thinks of her mother's stories of Jesus walking among lepers, touching the untouchable, loving the unlovable. If he could do that, her mother once said, then we can take one step toward kindness, even when it's hard. As she nears the bridge, Amira sees the flicker of a lantern. Her stomach twists. The checkpoint. She crouches behind a pile of stones, her breath shallow. There are voices, low, tense male. She cannot make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable suspicion, fear the prelude to violence. She could turn back, find another route, but time is not on her side. The border is her only hope, and the bridge is the only way across. Tariq on the other side of the bridge feels the weight of his own fear. His group has reached the checkpoint, and the soldiers, young nervous, their eyes darting, are demanding papers, searching bags, barking orders. One of the men in Tariq's group, a hot-headed youth named Khalil, mutters under his breath, his hand inching toward his weapon. Tariq places a hand on Khalil's arm, a silent plea. Not now. Not here. He thinks of his daughter safe for now with her grandmother and the promise he made to return to her. He thinks of the supplies in the bags meant for children like her, and the absurdity of dying over a crate of bandages. The soldiers grow agitated. One of them, barely older than Khalil, raises his rifle, shouting something about a curfew. Tariq's heart pounds, but he steps forward, hands raised, voice steady. "We're not here to fight," he says. "We're bringing food, medicine, for the camp." The soldier hesitates, his finger on the trigger. The air is thick with the possibility of death. Here, in this moment of unbearable tension, we find the heart of Pope Francis's teaching in Laudato Si. We are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis, which is both social and environmental. War is part of this crisis, a symptom of our failure to care for each other and for the world God has given us. It is the opposite of the culture of encounter that Pope Francis calls for, where we meet others with openness, not suspicion. Christ's example in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he heals the ear of the servant wounded by Peter's sword, shows us another way. Even in the face of betrayal, even moments before his arrest, Jesus chooses healing over violence, mercy over retribution. He does not condemn Peter's fear. He redirects it toward love. For Amira, hiding in the shadows, this teaching might feel impossibly distant. For Tariq, standing between a soldier's rifle and his own men, it might seem like a dream. Yet both are on the cusp of a choice that could embody this mercy. Amira could run, prioritizing her own survival. Tariq could let Khalil escalate the conflict, ensuring a fight. But there is another path, one that requires courage beyond bravery, faith beyond reason. Amira watches the scene unfold, her heart pounding. She sees the man Tariq step forward, his hands raised, his voice calm, despite the chaos. She sees the soldier, young and afraid, his rifle trembling. And then she sees something else, a small figure, a child darting from the shadows on the other side of the bridge. The child, no more than 10, is clutching a bundle, perhaps food stolen from the camp, and he is running straight into the line of fire. Without thinking, Amira steps out from her hiding place. "Stop!" she cries, her voice cutting through the night. The soldiers turn, startled, their rifles swinging toward her. Tariq's group freezes Khalil's hand, still on his weapon. The child stumbles, dropping his bundle, his eyes wide with terror. Amira's heart screams at her to run, but her feet move forward. She raises her hands, mirroring Tariq's gesture, and speaks to the child. "Come here," she says softly, her voice steady despite her fear. "You're safe." The boy hesitates, then runs to her, clinging to her shawl. She looks at the soldiers, at Tariq, at the men poised for violence, and says, "He's just a child. Let him go. Tariq sees her now, a woman he does not know risking her life for a boy who means nothing to her. He sees the locket glinting at her throat, the fear in her eyes, and the courage that holds her there. And in that moment, he makes his own choice. He turns to the soldier, his voice low but firm. Let them pass. Let us all pass. We're not your enemies tonight. The soldier's finger hovers on the trigger, his eyes flicking between Amira, the child, and Tariq. The other soldiers shift uncertain. The air is taut a string about to snap, and then slowly the soldier lowers his rifle. Go, he says, his voice hoarse. But don't come back. This is the miracle of mercy. Not that it erases conflict, but that it creates a space where humanity can breathe. Amira and Tariq, strangers bound by a moment, have chosen the path of the peacemaker. They have not ended the war, but they have kept one corner of it from spiraling into bloodshed. The child, trembling in Amira's arms, will live to see another day. The supplies will reach the camp, and the soldier perhaps will carry the memory of this night, a seed of doubt in the necessity of violence. As Amira walks away, the child's hand in hers, she feels the locket against her chest, warm as a heartbeat. She thinks of her mother's prayers, of Christ's command to love even those who hate us. She does not know if she is strong enough to live that way every day, but tonight she has taken one step. Tariq, leading his men across the bridge, feels the weight of his rifle lighten, if only for a moment. He thinks of his daughter, of the world he wants her to inherit. He thinks of the woman who stepped into danger for a child, and he wonders if he could do the same. Tonight, he has chosen mercy, and that choice will shape him, even if he cannot yet see how. This is the invitation of Pope Francis and Christ to choose mercy in the midst of war, to see the sacred in the stranger, to act with love when fear is easier. It is not a call to perfection, but to presence, to showing up in the broken places of our world with hands open rather than fists clenched. For Amira and Tariq, it is the beginning of a journey, one that will test their faith, their courage, and their humanity. And so, dear listener, as we leave this village behind, let us carry their story with us. Let us ask ourselves, where in our lives are we called to be peacemakers? Where can we choose mercy over judgment, love over fear? The world is noisy, fractured, and often cruel, but it is also brimming with opportunities for grace. Take one step, however small, and trust that God walks with you. The night is heavy with the scent of rain as Amira walks away from the bridge, the child's small hand trembling in hers. His name, she learns, is Sammy, and his eyes carry the weight of too many losses for someone so young. The locket at her throat feels heavier now, not with grief, but with purpose, as if her mother's prayers are weaving themselves into this moment. Behind her, the checkpoint fades into the darkness, the soldiers' lanterns dimming like stars swallowed by clouds. She does not look back. The border lies ahead, a promise of safety that feels both impossibly close and infinitely far. Tariq, too, moves forward, his group silent as they cross the bridge with their supplies. The encounter at the checkpoint lingers in his mind, the woman's voice steady despite her fear. The child's desperate run, the soldier's hesitation. He wonders who she was, this stranger who stepped into danger for a boy she didn't know. He wonders if he would have done the same. The rifle slung across his back feels like a chain binding him to a war he never chose. Yet tonight, for the first time in months, he feels a flicker of something else, hope perhaps, or the ghost of who he used to be. The road stretches before them, a ribbon of dust and danger winding through hills scarred by conflict. For Amira and Sammy, it is a path to refuge, a camp just beyond the border where rumors of food and safety draw the desperate like moths to a flame. For Tariq and his men, it is a mission to deliver supplies to that same camp, a task that feels both vital and futile in the face of endless need. Neither knows that their paths briefly joined at the bridge will converge again, nor that the choices they make on this road will test their faith in ways they cannot yet imagine. Sammy's steps falter, his small frame exhausted. Amira kneels beside him, offering a sip from her water bottle. His hands shake as he drinks, and she notices a crude bandage wrapped around his wrist, stained with dirt and blood. "What happened?" she asks, gently touching the bandage. Sammy's eyes dart away, but he mumbles, "A man. He took my bread. I fought back." His voice is flat, as if pain is just another fact of life. Amira's heart aches, but she keeps her face calm, unwrapping the bandage to reveal a shallow cut, inflamed, but not fatal. She tears a strip from her shawl, rebandaging it with care. "You're brave," she says, and Sammy looks at her, searching for a lie. Finding none, he nods, a small spark of trust kindling between them. As they walk, Amira thinks of Pope Francis's words from his 2016 homily in Krakow. "We are called to serve Jesus crucified in every person who is marginalized, to touch his sacred flesh, in those who are disadvantaged, hungry, thirsty, naked, imprisoned, sick, unemployed, persecuted refugees or migrants." Sami, with his tattered clothes and wary eyes, is that sacred flesh. To care for him is not charity, but communion, a recognition that Christ is present in the least of these. Yet Amira feels her own inadequacy. She has so little water, bread, a shawl. How can she be enough for this boy, for this world? Her mother's voice echoes in her memory, reciting the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Jesus spoke these words not as a reward system, but as a description of God's kingdom, where mercy is both gift and task. To be merciful, Amira realizes, is not to have all the answers, but to act with love even when resources are scarce, even when fear whispers that survival demands selfishness. She takes Sammy's hand again, her resolve strengthening. One step at a time, she will walk with him toward safety. Tariq's group moves cautiously, the weight of their supplies slowing their pace. The camp is close now, but the road is treacherous, littered with the wreckage of war, burned-out vehicles, abandoned belongings, the occasional unmarked grave. Khalil, the young man from the checkpoint, walks beside Tariq, his anger simmering like a storm. "We should have fought," he mutters. "Those soldiers, they'd have backed down." Tariq shakes his head. And then what? More blood, more widows. "You think that's what your sister would want?" Khalil flinches at the mention of his sister killed in a drone strike months ago. He says nothing, but his silence is loud with grief. Tariq thinks of Christ's words in the Gospel of John. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." This peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of God, a stillness that holds even when the world shakes. Tariq longs for that peace for himself, for Khalil, for the daughter waiting for him at home. But how does one find it on a road like this, where every shadow could be a sniper, every stranger a threat? Pope Francis, in his 2020 encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, offers a clue. The decision to include or exclude those lying wounded along the roadside can serve as a criterion for judging every economic, political, social, and religious project. Tariq's mission to deliver supplies is not just logistical, it is moral. The camp is filled with people like Sami, wounded, excluded, forgotten. To reach them is to choose inclusion, to reject the lie that some lives matter less. Yet Tariq knows the cost. The road is watched by bandits, by militias, by men who see aid as weakness. To carry on is to risk everything. The sky darkens and a light rain begins to fall, turning the dust to mud. Amira and Sami take shelter under a skeletal tree, its branches offering little protection. She wraps her shawl around them both, her body shielding Sami from the worst of the chill. He is quiet, but his breathing is uneven, a sign of fever. Amira's heart sinks. The cut on his wrist, the exhaustion, the lack of food, it is too much for a child. She thinks of the camp where there might be medicine, but the border is still miles away, and the rain is slowing them down. She closes her eyes, praying as her mother taught her, "Lord, have mercy." The words feel small against the vastness of their need, but they ground her. She remembers Pope Francis's 2013 homily in Lampedusa, where he spoke of the globalization of indifference that allows us to ignore the suffering of others. Amira refuses that indifference. Sami is not a statistic, not a burden, but a boy with a name, a story, a future. She will not leave him behind. As the rain eases, she helps Sami to his feet. "We're almost there." She lies, hoping her voice carries more confidence than she feels. Sami nods, leaning against her. They walk on the mud, sucking at their shoes, the border a distant hope. Amira thinks of the parable of the persistent widow who demanded justice until it was granted. Jesus told that story to teach perseverance, to show that faith is not passive but active, a refusal to give up even when the odds seem impossible. Amira clings to that lesson now, each step a prayer, each breath a defiance of despair. Tariq's group reaches a narrow pass, a place where the hills close in, leaving little room to maneuver. The rain has made the ground slick, and the men are tense, their eyes scanning the shadows. Tariq feels the weight of his responsibility, not just for the supplies, but for the lives of these men, each with their own fears, their own reasons to keep going. He thinks of his daughter, her small hand in his, and the promise he made to return. He thinks of the woman at the bridge, her courage a mirror to his own doubts. Suddenly, a shout breaks the silence. Ambush. One of the men cries as figures emerge from the hills. Bandits, their faces masked, their weapons glinting in the moonlight. Panic erupts. Khalil raises his gun, firing wildly, and the others follow their shots, echoing through the pass. Tariq ducks behind a rock, his heart pounding. The supplies are scattered crates spilling into the mud. This is what he feared, what he knew could happen. The bandits return fire, their bullets biting into the earth. In the chaos, Tariq remembers Christ's command in the Sermon on the Mount, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." The words feel absurd here, surrounded by gunfire, but they anchor him. These bandits are not monsters. They are men driven by hunger, by desperation, by the same war that has broken everyone. To love them does not mean to surrender, but to see them as human, to seek a way out that does not end in more death. "Stop!" Tariq shouts, his voice barely audible over the gunfire. He stands, hands raised, stepping into the open. The men in his group stare horrified, but the bandits hesitate, their shots slowing. "We have food," Tariq calls. "Medicine. Take it, but let us live. It is a gamble, a plea born of faith and desperation. The bandits exchange glances, their leader a man with a scarred face stepping forward. "You'd give it up?" he asks, his voice rough. Tariq nods. "It's for the camp, for people who need it. Take what you want, but let us go." The leader studies him, then laughs, a sound both bitter and surprised. "You're a fool," he says, but he lowers his weapon. "Take your men and leave. We'll take the crates." Tariq's group hesitates. Khalil's face twisted with anger, but Tariq's eyes are steady. "Go," he tells them. They retreat, leaving the supplies behind, their lives intact. Amira and Sammy are close to the border now, the lights of the camp visible in the distance. The rain has stopped, but Sammy's fever is worse, his steps sluggish. Amira carries him, her arms aching her own strength, fading. She thinks of Pope Francis's call in Evangelii Gaudium to go to the peripheries to meet people where they are in their pain and need. The camp is that periphery, a place of brokenness and hope, and Amira is determined to reach it for Sammy's sake and her own. As they near the border, they encounter a group of refugees, their faces etched with exhaustion. Among them is a woman, older, with a medical kit slung over her shoulder. Amira approaches, desperate. "Please," she says, "he's sick. He needs help." The woman, whose name is Noor, examines Sammy, her hands gentle but efficient. "Fever," she says. "Infection. I have antibiotics, but he needs rest food." She gives Amira a small packet of pills and a bandage, her eyes kind. "You're almost there," she says. "Keep going." Amira thanks her, tears stinging her eyes. This is mercy. She realizes not grand gestures, but small acts of care offered without expectation. It is Christ's love, made visible, the kingdom of God, breaking through in a stranger's kindness. She gives Noor the last of her bread, a gesture of gratitude and solidarity. Noor smiles, and they part, each carrying the other's hope. Tariq's group reaches the camp at dawn, their mission half failed, but their lives spared. The camp is a sprawl of tents and makeshift shelters filled with people who have lost everything yet cling to life. Tariq feels the weight of their loss, the supplies left behind, the people who will go hungry because of it. But he also feels the weight of their survival, the miracle of walking away from an ambush without blood on his hands. He thinks of Pope Francis's words in Amoris Laetitia. The strength of the family lies in its capacity to love and to teach how to love. Tariq's family is not just his daughter, but these men, this camp, this broken world. To love them is to keep trying, to keep choosing life over death, mercy over vengeance. He vows to return to the camp with more supplies, to find another way to honor the faith that carried him through the night. As he helps distribute what little they brought, he sees a woman and a boy approaching the camp's medical tent. It is her, the woman from the bridge, her face worn but resolute, the boy leaning against her. Their eyes meet, and for a moment the world narrows to this shared recognition. They are strangers, yet not strangers bound by choices made in the dark. Amira reaches the medical tent where a doctor takes Sammy, promising care. She collapses onto a bench, her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. The locket at her throat catches the morning light, and she touches it, whispering a prayer of thanks. She thinks of Christ's promise in the Gospel of Matthew. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." She feels that rest now not as an end to struggle, but as a moment of grace, a pause in the journey. Tariq approaches hesitant. "You made it," he says, his voice soft. Amira nods, too tired to speak. The boy, he asks. "He'll live," she says, and the words feel like a victory. Tariq sits beside her, the silence between them comfortable like a shared prayer. "You were at the bridge," he says finally. "You saved him." Amira shakes her head. "We saved each other," she says, and Tariq understands. This is the power of mercy. It does not erase the war, the pain, the loss, but it creates connections, moments of light in the darkness. Amira and Tariq, each carrying their own wounds, have found in each other a reflection of God's love, a reminder that no one walks alone. Pope Francis and Christ call us to this love, to see the sacred in every encounter, to act with courage and compassion even when the world seems to demand otherwise. Dear listener, as Amira and Tariq rest in the dawn's light, let their story challenge us. Where are the peripheries in our lives, the places where we are called to bring mercy? Who is the stranger, the wounded, the enemy we are invited to love? The road is long, the burdens heavy, but every step toward mercy is a step toward God. Take that step today and know that you are not alone. The morning sun casts a pale glow over the refugee camp, its light filtering through a haze of dust and smoke. The air hums with the sounds of survival children crying, pots clanging, voices raised in prayer or argument. Amira sits on a bench outside the medical tent, her hands clasped around a chipped mug of tea, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of exhaustion. Sammy is inside resting under the care of a harried doctor, his fever breaking, but his body still fragile. The locket at Amira's throat catches the sunlight, a quiet reminder of her mother's faith of the journey that brought her here. She feels the weight of the night's events, the bridge, the checkpoint, the road, and wonders what comes next. Tariq stands nearby helping unload a crate of blankets from a battered truck that arrived at dawn. His group diminished by the loss of supplies to the bandits works in silence, their faces etched with fatigue and resolve. He glances at Amira, the woman from the bridge, and feels a strange kinship, as if their shared moment of mercy has bound them beyond words. His daughter's face flashes in his mind, her laughter a distant memory, and he clenches his jaw, determined to return to her. But first he must finish what he started here in this place where need is endless and hope is a fragile thing. The camp is a microcosm of the war's toll families' fractured lives, uprooted dreams buried under rubble. Yet it is also a place of stubborn resilience, where people stitch together scraps of normalcy, a mother braiding her daughter's hair, a man brewing coffee over a makeshift fire, a group of children kicking a deflated ball through the dirt. Amira and Tariq, each in their own way, are part of this tapestry, their choices at the bridge now weaving into the larger story of this camp. They do not know that the day ahead will demand more of them, that the mercy they showed will be tested by new challenges, new faces, new wounds. Amira sips her tea, her eyes scanning the camp. The medical tent is overcrowded, its canvas walls straining against the press of bodies. She thinks of Sammy, of the doctor's quiet assurance that he will recover, and feels a flicker of gratitude. But gratitude is quickly overshadowed by the reality around her. Too many people, too few resources. A woman nearby cradles a baby, her face hollow with hunger. An old man limps past, muttering about a son lost to the war. The camp is a sanctuary, but it is also a crucible where survival demands more than food and shelter. It demands heart. She remembers Pope Francis's words from his 2015 encyclical, Laudato Si. We are not faced with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis which is both social and environmental. The war has torn apart not just homes, but the bonds that hold humanity together. The camp, with its makeshift tents and shared suffering, is a symptom of that crisis, a place where the earth's wounds and humanity's wounds bleed together. Yet Pope Francis also speaks of hope, of the small gestures that can heal, of the call to care for our common home and each other. Christ's teaching in the Gospel of Matthew echoes this call. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. These words, spoken to his disciples, are not a suggestion, but a revelation. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, is an encounter with the divine. Amira feels this truth in her bones as she watches the camp, its chaos and beauty intertwined. She is no hero, no saint, but she is here, and that is enough to begin. She rises her tea unfinished and approaches the woman with the baby. "Do you have food?" Amira asks, her voice soft. The woman, whose name is Layla, shakes her head, her eyes dull with despair. Amira hesitates, then reaches into her bag, pulling out the crust of bread she had saved for herself. It is stale, barely enough for one, but she offers it to Layla. "For your child," she says. Layla's eyes widen, and she takes the bread, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she whispers, and the words carry a weight that Amira feels in her chest. It is a small act, insignificant in the face of the camp's need, but it is a start. Tariq wipes sweat from his brow as he stacks the blankets, his muscles aching. The truck brought less than they hoped. Blankets, some canned food, a few bottles of water, but it is something. He thinks of the supplies lost to the bandits, the children who will shiver tonight because of it, and feels a pang of guilt. Yet he also remembers the moment he chose to walk away, to value lives over crates, and knows he would make the same choice again. As he works, a young girl approaches, her clothes ragged, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Are you a soldier?" she asks, pointing to the rifle slung across his back. Tariq shakes his head, crouching to her level. "I'm a farmer," he says. "I'm just here to help." The girl, whose name is Noor, tilts her head. "My brother says farmers don't carry guns." Tariq smiles, though it feels heavy. "Sometimes we have to," he says, "but I'd rather plant seeds than fight." Noor nods as if this makes perfect sense, and runs off her laughter, a brief melody in the camp's somber chorus. Tariq stands his thoughts, turning to Christ's parable of the mustard seed, where faith as small as a seed can grow into a tree that shelters all. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds on earth. Yet when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants." Tariq is no preacher, but he feels the truth of this story here in the camp. The blankets, the food, his choice to spare the bandits, these are seeds, small and seemingly insignificant, but capable of growth beyond his imagining. Pope Francis, in his 2020 message for the World Day of Peace, builds on this idea. Peace is a journey of hope, a journey which proceeds through dialogue, reconciliation, and ecological conversion. The camp is that journey, a place where peace is not a distant dream, but a daily practice built on small acts of trust and care. Tariq resolves to plant more seeds, to be a man who builds rather than destroys, even if the war makes it hard. The day wears on, and the camp's needs become clearer. The medical tent is running out of bandages, the food distribution line is growing restless, and a rumor spreads of a militia approaching from the north. Amira, now helping in the tent, feels the tension like a tightening noose. She changes Sammy's bandage, her hands steady despite her fear, and listens as the doctor, a woman named Dr. Hannah, speaks of the camp's struggles. "We have medicine for a week, maybe 2, Hannah says, her voice low. "After that, people will die." Amira nods, her mind racing. She thinks of her mother's prayers, of the way faith turned fear into action, and wonders what she can do. Outside, Tariq hears the same rumors of the militia and feels a familiar dread. His group is unarmed now, their rifles left behind to appease the bandits, and the camp has no defenses. He joins a meeting of camp leaders, a mix of refugees and aid workers who debate what to do. Some argue for evacuation, others for negotiation, but all agree that time is short. Tariq listens, his farmer's heart urging him to find a way that avoids bloodshed. He thinks of Pope Francis's call in Fratelli Tutti to build bridges, to break down walls, to sow seeds of peace. A militia, he knows, is not an army, but a group of men, each with their own fears, their own losses. Perhaps there is a way to reach them. He speaks up, his voice hesitant at first. "If they're coming for supplies, we could offer what we have," he says, "not as surrender, but as a gesture. Show them we're not enemies." The room falls silent. Some faces skeptical, others intrigued. An older man, a former teacher named Jamal, nods. "It's risky," he says, "but it's better than fighting with nothing." The group agrees to send a small delegation to meet the militia before they reach the camp, carrying a white flag and a crate of food as a sign of goodwill. Tariq volunteers, his heart pounding. He thinks of his daughter, of the promise to return, and prays he is not making a mistake. As he prepares, he sees Amira emerging from the tent, her face tired but determined. Their eyes meet again, and he feels a surge of courage, as if her presence is a reminder of the bridge of the power of choosing mercy. Amira, meanwhile, has found a new purpose in the tent. Dr. Hannah, impressed by her calm under pressure, asks her to help organize the medical supplies, a task that feels both overwhelming and vital. As she sorts bandages and bottles, Amira thinks of Christ's miracle of the loaves and fishes, where a boy's small offering fed thousands. In the Gospel of John, Jesus takes what is given, blesses it, and makes it enough. Amira has no miracles, but she has her hands, her heart, and a stubborn refusal to give up. She works quickly her mind on Sammy, on Layla, on the countless others who need more than she can give. As she works, a young man stumbles into the tent, his arm bleeding from a deep gash. He is one of the camp's scavengers sent to search for supplies in the nearby ruins, and he was attacked by looters. Amira helps him sit, her hands moving automatically to clean the wound. The man, whose name is Omar, winces but manages a weak smile. "You're kind," he says. "Not everyone is." Amira shakes her head. "I'm just doing what I can," she says, but his words stay with her, a reminder that kindness, even in small doses, is a light in the dark. She thinks of Pope Francis's 2016 address in Assisi. We do not need grand gestures, but lives filled with small acts of love, forgiveness, and compassion. The camp is a laboratory for those acts where every bandage, every shared meal, every gentle word is a defiance of the war's cruelty. Amira resolves to keep going to be a small light, even if the darkness feels overwhelming. The delegation sets out at dusk, Tariq among them carrying the crate of food and a white cloth tied to a stick. The militia is rumored to be a mile north, camped in a valley. The group moves quietly, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. Tariq's heart races, but he thinks of Christ's words in the Gospel of Luke. Do not be afraid. Little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Fear is natural, but faith is a choice, a trust that God is present even in the valley of death. They reach the militia's camp, a cluster of tents and fires, and are met by armed men, their faces hard with suspicion. The leader, a man named Reza, steps forward, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" he demands. Jamal, the teacher, speaks for the group, his voice steady. "We're from the refugee camp. We've brought food a gift. We don't want to fight." Reza laughs, but it is a tired sound, not cruel. "You think food will stop us?" he asks. Tariq steps forward, his hands empty. "It's not about stopping you," he says. "It's about showing you we're human like you. We're all caught in this war. Maybe we can help each other." Reza studies him, then the crate, then the white flag. The other militiamen shift uncertain. Finally, Reza nods. "We'll take the food," he says. "But we're coming to the camp tomorrow. We need medicine fuel. You give it, we leave you alone. It is not peace, but it is a truce, a fragile thread of understanding." The delegation returns to the camp, their hearts lighter, but their minds heavy with what tomorrow will bring. Amira hears of the delegation's return as she finishes her work in the tent. Sammy is awake now, his eyes clearer, and he manages a small smile when she sits beside him. "You stayed?" he says, his voice weak. Amira nods, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Of course," she says. "You're my family now." The words surprise her, but they feel true. In this camp, where blood ties are often broken, family is chosen forged in shared suffering and care. She steps outside the night air, cool against her skin, and sees Tariq returning with the delegation. Their eyes meet, and she walks toward him, drawn by the unspoken bond of the bridge. "You went to them," she says. Not a question, but a statement. Tariq nods. "We had to try," he says. "They're coming tomorrow. It's not over." Amira looks at him, seeing the farmer beneath the rifle, the father beneath the fear. "You're trying to build something," she says. "That's enough for now." They stand together, the camp around them alive with the small acts that keep it going. A woman singing to her child, a man sharing his water, a group praying under the stars. Pope Francis's words from Evangelii Gaudium come to Amira's mind. An evangelizing community gets involved by word and deed in people's daily lives. It bridges distances. It is willing to abase itself if necessary. And it embraces human life, touching the suffering flesh of Christ in others. This camp is that community, flawed and fragile, but alive with the Spirit of Christ. The night deepens, and Amira returns to the tent, checking on Sammy before curling up on a mat to rest. Tariq finds a spot near the distribution area, his eyes on the stars, his thoughts on his daughter. Both carry the weight of the day's choices. The bread given the truce offered the wounds tended. Both feel the presence of something greater, a love that holds them even in the chaos. Dear listener, the camp is a mirror reflecting our own lives, our own chances to choose mercy. The war is not just out there in the rubble and the rifles, but in our hearts, where fear and indifference battle with love. Amira and Tariq show us that small acts, sharing bread, offering a truce, binding a wound, are not small at all. They are the seeds of God's kingdom planted in the cracks of a broken world. Where can you plant such a seed today? Step forward, however humbly, and trust that God will make it grow. The first light of dawn creeps over the refugee camp, painting the canvas tents in hues of gold and shadow. The air is sharp with the promise of a new day, but it carries the weight of yesterday's uncertainties. Amira stirs on her mat inside the medical tent, her body aching from the long night. Sammy sleeps beside her, his breathing steady, now the fever's grip loosening. She touches the locket at her throat, its familiar weight grounding her, and whispers a prayer of thanks. The camp is waking, voices murmur, fires crackle, footsteps shuffle through the dirt. But beneath the ordinary sounds lies a current of tension. The militia is coming today, and no one knows what they will bring. Tariq is already up, standing at the camp's edge, his eyes scanning the northern hills where the militia was last seen. The white flag from yesterday's delegation lies folded in his pack, a symbol of hope now tinged with doubt. His hands rough from years of farming itch for the rifle he no longer carries, but he pushes the impulse aside. He thinks of his daughter, her small voice asking when he'll come home, and of the woman from the bridge, Amira, whose courage at the checkpoint still lingers in his mind. Today, he knows, will demand more than courage. It will demand trust, the kind that feels like stepping into the dark. The camp buzzes with preparation. Dr. Hanna organizes the medical tent rationing supplies for the expected influx of needs. Jamal the teacher rallies, volunteers to guard the food stores, not with weapons, but with presence, a quiet show of unity. Layla the mother, Amira helped cradles her baby while distributing water, her face lit with a determination that belies her hunger. Amira and Tariq, each drawn into the camp's rhythm, feel the weight of their shared history, the bridge, the road, the small acts of mercy that have brought them here. They do not know that today's encounter will weave their stories tighter, nor that the choices they make will ripple beyond the camp's borders. Amira rises, checking on Sammy before stepping outside. The morning air is cool, and she wraps her shawl tighter, her eyes drawn to the crowd gathering near the camp's entrance. Word of the militia's approach has spread, and fear mingles with resolve in the faces around her. She spots Tariq among the volunteers, his posture steady despite the uncertainty. Their eyes meet, and he nods a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey. Amira feels a spark of strength, as if his presence is a reminder that mercy once chosen becomes a path that others can follow. She joins Dr. Hanna in the tent, where the air smells of antiseptic and worry. "They'll want medicine," Hanna says, her voice low as she sorts bandages. "If we give too much, we'll have nothing left. If we give too little, they might take it all." Amira nods, her mind racing. She thinks of Pope Francis's words from his 2017 homily in Cairo. The only extremism allowed for believers is that of charity. Any other extremism does not come from God and is not pleasing to Him. Charity, Amira realizes, is not just giving what is easy, but offering what is costly, trusting that love will multiply what is shared. She recalls Christ's feeding of the 5,000 in the Gospel of John, where a boy's 5 loaves and 2 fish offered freely became enough for all. The miracle was not in the bread alone, but in the act of giving in the community that formed around it. Amira has no loaves, no fish, but she has her hands, her voice, her faith. What if we invite them in, she suggests to Hannah. Not just to take, but to sit to talk. Show them we're not hiding anything. Hannah looks skeptical but nods. It's a risk, she says, but it might be our only chance. Amira steps outside, approaching Jamal and the volunteers. She shares her idea, a table simple but open with whatever food and water the camp can spare. Not a negotiation, but an invitation, a gesture of humanity. Jamal listens, his eyes thoughtful. It's bold, he says, like the parable of the banquet, where the master invites everyone, even the outcasts. He agrees to help, and soon a small group is setting up a makeshift table near the camp's entrance, piling it with flatbread dates and jugs of water. It is meager, but it is honest, a reflection of the camp's heart. Tariq, helping to carry crates to the table, feels a mix of admiration and unease. The idea, Amira's idea, he learns, feels like the bridge all over again, a leap into the unknown. He thinks of his encounter with the bandits, how offering supplies saved lives, but cost the camp dearly. This feels bigger, riskier, yet he cannot shake the sense that it is right. He remembers Pope Francis's call in Fratelli Tutti. We need to acknowledge that we are constantly tempted to ignore others, especially the weak. Let us admit that for all the progress we have made, we are still illiterate when it comes to accompanying, caring for, and supporting the most frail and vulnerable. The militia Tariq knows is not just a threat, but a collection of men hungry, wounded, caught in the same war that has scarred everyone. To ignore them is to deepen the divide. To engage them is to risk everything. He thinks of Christ's words in the Gospel of Luke. When you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. The table before him, sparse but welcoming, is that banquet a space where enemies might become guests, if only for a moment. As the table is set, Tariq notices Noor, the curious girl from yesterday, watching from a distance. She runs up, her eyes wide. "Are you feeding the bad men?" she asks. Tariq kneels, choosing his words carefully. "They're not bad," he says. "They're lost, like we all are sometimes. We're giving them a chance to find their way." Noor frowns, then nods, as if storing the idea for later. Tariq watches her run off, her question echoing in his mind. He prays he is right for her sake, for his daughters, for the camps. The militia appears just before noon, a line of figures cresting the hill. There are perhaps 20 men, their clothes a mix of military gear and tattered civilian wear, their faces hard but weary. Reza, the leader from yesterday, walks at the front, his rifle slung across his back. The camp falls silent, the air thick with anticipation. Jamal steps forward, holding the white flag, his voice steady. "Welcome," he says. "We've prepared a table. Sit with us." Reza's eyes narrow, scanning the crowd, the table, the camp. He laughs, a sharp sound, but there is curiosity in it. "You think bread will save you?" he asks, echoing his words from the valley. Amira, standing near the table, feels her heart pound, but steps forward, her voice clear. "It's not about saving us," she says. "It's about seeing each other. You need medicine food. We have little, but we'll share what we can." Reza studies her, his expression unreadable. The other militiamen shift, some gripping their weapons, others looking at the table with something like hunger. Finally, Reza nods. "We'll sit," he says, "but we're not your friends. It is not trust, but it is a start." The militia approaches the table, some sitting, others standing guard. The camp's volunteers move cautiously, offering bread and water, their hands trembling, but their faces calm. Tariq pours water for Reza, his eyes meeting the man's briefly. There is no warmth there, but there is a flicker of recognition, as if Reza remembers the valley, the choice to walk away. Amira serves bread to a young militiaman, his face barely older than Sammy's, and notices a crude bandage on his hand, much like the one she wrapped for Sammy. "You're hurt," she says softly. The boy flinches, but she holds his gaze. "We have a doctor. She can help." He says nothing, but his eyes linger on her, a crack in his armor. The meal is tense, punctuated by silence and the occasional murmur. The camp watches, some with hope, others with fear. Dr. Hana approaches her medical kit in hand and speaks to Reza. "You said you need medicine," she says. "We have antibiotics, bandages, some painkillers. Not much, but enough to help your men. In return, we ask only that you leave us in peace." Reza considers this, then nods. "Show me," he says. Hana leads him and two others to the medical tent, where Amira helps display the supplies. Sami, awake now, watches from his cot, his eyes wide but unafraid. Inside the tent, Reza inspects the medicine, his face impassive. This is all he asks. Hana nods. "It's what we have. Take it, but know it's for your men, not your war." Reza's jaw tightens, but he signals his men to take the supplies. As they do, Amira notices the young militiaman with the bandaged hand lingering near Sammy's cot. She approaches, her voice low. "Let me look at that," she says, pointing to his hand. He hesitates, then extends it. She unwraps the bandage, revealing a festering cut, and cleans it gently, her hands steady. "You're brave," she says, echoing her words to Sammy. The boy's eyes soften, and for a moment the tent feels like sacred ground. Tariq outside watches the militia eat, their guarded postures easing slightly. He thinks of Pope Francis's 2019 address in Abu Dhabi. The courage to embrace the other is the courage to embrace God, who makes himself visible through the face of our brothers and sisters. This table, this moment, is that embrace, fragile but real. He joins Jamal, who is speaking to a militiaman about the camp's needs: clean water, more tents, safety. The man listens, his face skeptical but not hostile. It is not a promise, but it is dialogue, a bridge where none existed before. The militia prepares to leave, their bags heavier with medicine and food. Reza stands addressing the camp. "We'll take what you've given," he says, "and we'll go. But don't think this changes anything. The war isn't over." His words are cold, but his tone lacks the edge of yesterday. Jamal steps forward, his voice calm. "We know," he says. "But today, we chose something else. Maybe you will too one day." Reza says nothing, but his eyes linger on the table, the camp, the people. He turns, leading his men away, their footsteps fading into the hills. The camp exhales relief mingling with exhaustion. Amira returns to the tent where Sammy is sitting up eating a piece of bread. "They didn't hurt us," he says, his voice small but curious. Amira smiles, brushing his hair back. "No," she says. "We showed them another way." She thinks of Christ's command in the Gospel of Matthew. "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." The militia is not her enemy. Not truly. They are men broken by the same war, searching for survival. To love them is not to agree with them, but to see them to offer a hand instead of a fist. Tariq joins the volunteers cleaning the table, his heart lighter, but his mind heavy. The militia took much of the camp's medicine, leaving them vulnerable, but they left without violence, without blood. He thinks of his daughter, of the world he wants her to know, and feels a quiet resolve. He approaches Amira, who is helping Layla distribute water to the crowd. "You were right," he says. "The table, it worked." Amira shakes her head, her eyes tired but bright. "It wasn't just me," she says. "It was all of us choosing together." The day winds down, and the camp settles into a fragile calm. Dr. Hanna reports that the remaining supplies will last a few days, enough to plan for the next delivery. Jamal speaks to the volunteers, praising their courage, their unity. Layla, her baby, asleep in her arms, thanks Amira again, her voice thick with emotion. Noor. The curious girl runs up to Tariq, holding a small stone painted with a flower. "For you," she says, "because you didn't fight." Tariq takes it, his throat tight, and tucks it into his pocket, a seed of hope. Amira sits with Sammy, telling him stories of her mother, of a time before the war when laughter was easier. She thinks of Pope Francis's words in Evangelii Gaudium. The joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. That joy is not loud or triumphant here, but it is real, woven into the camp's small victories. The militia's departure, Sammy's healing the table that held them all. She feels it in her heart, a warmth that carries her forward. Tariq, standing at the camp's edge, watches the sun sink below the hills. He thinks of Christ's parable of the sower, where seeds fall on different soils, some thriving, some lost. The camp is rocky ground, but today a few seeds took root. He prays they will grow for his daughter, for Noor, for the world. He sees Amira in the distance, her silhouette against the fading light, and feels a connection deeper than words. They are strangers, yet family bound by mercy's thread. The night falls, and the camp grows quiet, its people resting in the aftermath of a day that could have ended in blood, but didn't. Amira curls up beside Sammy, her locket a steady weight against her chest. Tariq lies under the stars, the painted stone in his hand, his thoughts on home. Both carry the day's lessons, that mercy is not weakness, but strength, not surrender, but courage, not a moment, but a way of life. Dear listener, the camp is our world, its struggles our own. The militia is not just out there, but within us, in the fears and judgments we carry. Amira and Tariq show us that encounter, true, open, risky encounter, can change the story. Where in your life can you set a table, offer a hand, see the other as God sees them? The war is real, but so is love, and every act of mercy is a step toward peace. Choose that step and know that God is with you always. The stars hang low over the refugee camp, their light a faint promise against the vast darkness. The night is cool, and the camp settles into an uneasy quiet, its people exhausted from the day's encounter with the militia. Amira lies beside Sammy in the medical tent, her shawl draped over them both, the locket at her throat, a steady anchor. Sammy's breathing is soft, his fever gone, but his small hand clutches hers, as if even in sleep he fears being alone. Amira's thoughts drift to the table they set the malicious departure, the fragile truce that held. She wonders if it was enough, if mercy can truly take root in a world so broken. Tariq sits at the camp's edge, the painted stone from Noor resting in his palm. The hills beyond are silent, but he knows the war is never far. Its shadow lingers in the camp's scarcity, in the fear that haunts every face. He thinks of his daughter waiting with her grandmother, and of the promise he made to return. He thinks of Amira, her quiet courage, and the way their choices have intertwined like vines growing from the same soil. The stone in his hand feels like a seed, small but heavy with possibility, and he prays for the strength to plant it well. The camp is a crossroads, a place where despair and hope collide. Amira and Tariq each shaped by the bridge. The road the tables stand at the heart of it, their stories converging in ways they cannot yet see. Today will bring new challenges, a dwindling supply of food, a growing number of sick, a rumor of another group approaching from the south. But it will also bring opportunities, moments to choose mercy over fear, love over indifference. This is the final chapter of their journey in the camp, but not the end of their story. For mercy once sown grows beyond the boundaries of time and place. Amira wakes to the sound of voices outside the tent, urgent but not panicked. She kisses Sammy's forehead, leaving him to sleep, and steps into the morning light. The camp is stirring its rhythm, both chaotic and familiar. Dr. Hannah is already at work, her face lined with worry as she counts the remaining bandages. "We're almost out," she tells Amira, her voice low. And more people are coming, sick, wounded, hungry. Amira nods, her heart sinking, but her resolve firm. She thinks of her mother's faith, of the way she found strength in prayer, and recalls Pope Francis's words from his 2018 homily in Geneva. We are called to be artisans of peace, building it up by small gestures of solidarity with those who suffer. Christ's parable of the talents found in the Gospel of Matthew comes to her mind. A master entrusts his servants with talents, expecting them to use what they have, however small, to create more. Amira has no wealth, no power, but she has her presence, her care, her willingness to act. She resolves to be a faithful servant, to use what she has to meet the camp's needs, even if it feels like drops in a desert. "What can I do?" she asks Hannah. The doctor hands her a list of tasks, sorting supplies, comforting patients, fetching water. "Start here," Hannah says, "and don't stop." Amira takes the list, her hands steady, and begins. She moves through the tent, checking on patients, offering water, listening to their fears. An elderly woman, her leg bandaged from a shrapnel wound, grabs Amira's hand, her eyes bright with tears. "You're an angel," she says. Amira shakes her head, embarrassed. "I'm just Amira," she says, but the woman's gratitude stays with her, a reminder that small acts carry weight beyond their measure. She thinks of Christ's words, "Whoever gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones will certainly not lose their reward." The camp is full of little ones, and Amira is determined to give what she can. Tariq, meanwhile, joins a group of volunteers at the food distribution area, where the line of hungry faces grows longer by the hour. The crates from yesterday's truck are nearly empty, and the camp's leaders are rationing what remains. Jamal, the teacher, speaks to the crowd, his voice calm but firm. "We share what we have," he says, "and we trust more will come." The words are met with murmurs, some hopeful, others skeptical. Tariq feels the crowd's desperation a mirror to his own, but he also feels the strength of their unity, fragile but real. As he hands out portions of rice and bread, he notices Noor again, her small frame weaving through the crowd. She tugs at his sleeve, holding up another painted stone, this one with a crude sun. "For the hungry people," she says, her voice serious. Tariq takes it, his heart aching with her innocence, her faith. "Thank you," he says, tucking it beside the first stone. He thinks of Pope Francis's call in Laudato Si to care for our common home, to see the earth and its people as interconnected. Noor's stones are a child's offering, but they are also a call to action, a reminder that even the smallest gifts can inspire. Tariq's thoughts turn to Christ's parable of the widow's offering, where a poor woman gives 2 small coins, all she has, and Jesus praises her above the wealthy. In the Gospel of Mark, he says, "She, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." The camp is that widow giving from its scarcity, trusting that God sees the sacrifice. Tariq resolves to give his all, not just today, but in the days to come, to be a man who builds, who loves, who returns to his daughter with stories of hope. The rumor of the approaching group grows louder as the morning unfolds. Scouts report a caravan, families not soldiers, fleeing a nearby village destroyed by airstrikes. The camp braces for their arrival, its resources stretched to breaking. Amira, now helping at the entrance, feels a mix of dread and determination. She thinks of her own journey, the road that brought her here, and of the strangers who helped her Noor, the medic Tariq, at the bridge. She wants to be that stranger now, the one who offers light in the dark. The caravan arrives at midday, a weary procession of men, women, and children, their clothes dusty, their faces hollow. Among them is a man named Elias, his arm in a sling, leading a group of orphans, their eyes wide with fear. Amira approaches, offering water, her voice gentle. "You're safe here," she says, though she knows safety is relative. Elias nods, his gratitude silent but deep. "We have nothing," he says, "but we'll work, we'll help." Amira smiles, seeing her mother's spirit in his words, her faith in action. She leads the group to the medical tent, where Hannah assesses their needs. Many are malnourished, some wounded, all exhausted. Amira helps settle the orphans, finding blankets and mats, her heart breaking at their silence, their resilience. She thinks of Pope Francis's 2020 message for the World Day of Migrants. To share our journey with migrants and refugees is to share their hopes, their struggles, their dignity. These newcomers are not a burden, but a gift, a chance to live out the gospel's call, to welcome the stranger. Tariq, hearing of the caravan, joins the effort to distribute food to the newcomers. The camp's supplies are critically low, and the volunteers work miracles with what remains, stretching rice and beans to feed dozens. Tariq notices Elias, the man with the sling, helping despite his injury, and feels a kinship. "You're strong," Tariq says, handing him a bowl of food. Elias shakes his head. "Not strong," he says, "just stubborn. These kids need me." Tariq nods, thinking of his daughter, of Sami, of Noor. "We all need each other," he says, and the words feel like a vow. As they work, a shout rises from the camp's edge. A truck approaches its engine, rumbling its sides marked with the emblem of an aid organization. The camp erupts in cautious hope, volunteers rushing to meet it. Tariq joins them, his heart pounding. The driver, a woman named Sarah, steps out, her face tired but warm. "We've got food medicine tents," she says. "Not enough, but it's a start." The crowd cheers, a sound that carries both relief and gratitude. Tariq helps unload the crates, his hands moving with a purpose he hasn't felt in months. He thinks of Christ's promise in the Gospel of John. "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry." The truck is no miracle, but it is a sign, a reminder that God provides through human hands. Amira, hearing the commotion, leaves the tent to help. She sees Tariq among the volunteers, his face lit with quiet joy, and feels a warmth in her chest. They work side by side, unpacking boxes of rice, bandages, and blankets, their movements synchronized, as if they've done this forever. The camp comes alive, people sharing the new supplies, their faces bright with possibility. Layla, the mother, approaches Amira, her baby in her arms. "You brought us luck," she says, smiling. Amira laughs, shaking her head. "It's not luck," she says. "It's us, together." The day stretches on, the camp transformed by the truck's arrival. The newcomers are settled. The sick are treated. The hungry are fed, if only for today. Amira returns to Sami, who is strong enough to sit outside, his eyes bright as he watches the activity. "It's like a family," he says, and Amira nods, her throat tight. She thinks of Pope Francis's words in Amoris Laetitia. The family is a sign of Christ's presence, a school of love, a place where humanity is reborn. This camp, with its tents and tears, is a family bound not by blood, but by choice, by mercy. Tariq, finishing his work, finds Noor, who is painting more stones, her small hands covered in color. "You're making the camp beautiful," he says, and she beams. He thinks of his daughter, of the world he wants her to inherit, and makes a decision. "I'm going home soon," he tells Jamal later, his voice steady. "But I'll come back. This place, it's part of me now." Jamal claps his shoulder, his eyes warm. "You've planted seeds," he says. "They'll grow." As the sun sets, Amira and Tariq find themselves at the camp's edge, the sky ablaze with color. They sit the silence between them, comfortable, their shared journey unspoken but felt. "You're leaving?" Amira asks, sensing his resolve. Tariq nods. "To my daughter," he says. "But I'll carry this place with me." Amira smiles, her locket glinting in the fading light. "And I'll stay," she says. "For Sami, for them." She gestures to the camp, its lights flickering like stars. They talk their words, weaving a tapestry of hope and loss. Tariq speaks of his farm, of the olive trees he hopes to plant again. Amira shares stories of her mother, of the faith that carried her through. They laugh, they grieve, they dream. Tariq pulls out Noor's stones, showing them to Amira, and she touches them, her eyes soft. "They're like us," she says. "Small, but enough." Tariq nods, his heart full. The night falls, and the camp glows with the light of fires and lanterns. Amira returns to Sami, telling him stories of the stars of a God who sees every small act. Tariq lies under those same stars, the stones in his pocket, his thoughts on home. Both feel the presence of Christ's promise in the Gospel of Matthew. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The camp is their rest, not an end, but a beginning, a place where mercy has taken root. Pope Francis's call in Fratelli Tutti echoes in their hearts. Let us dream then as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh, as children of the same earth, which is our common home. The camp is that dream, imperfect but alive, a testament to what happens when people choose to see each other, to share, to love. Amira and Tariq, through their small acts, have helped it grow, and though their paths may diverge, their story is one. Dear listener, the camp is our world, its people, our neighbors, its struggles, our own. Amira and Tariq show us that mercy is not a single choice, but a harvest sown daily in the ordinary moments of care. Where can you sow such seeds? In your home, your community, your heart. The war is real, the burden's heavy, but love is stronger, and every act of mercy is a step toward God's kingdom. Plant your seed, however small, and trust that it will bloom now and forever.